Good evening. Welcome to the January 30th, 2013 Boundary Public Hearing. This evening we are here for the sole purpose of hearing from our public with regard to the proposed boundary changes presented by Interim Superintendent Alvin Crawley. First, however, we will have Mr. John Dale Jones Brown, the Director of Pupil Accounting and School Boundaries, to guide us through a brief overview of the proposed boundary recommendations to the Board of Education. And after we have completed that, we will hear from our registered speaker, Mr. John Dale Brown.
Good evening, board members and public. Again, tonight's presentation is going to be brief. Really want to give you just a very short overview in terms of the boundary changes, grade changes, and program changes that have been recommended by the superintendent. This particular public hearing culminates a series of activities which included public forums, information that was mailed to schools as well as to parents, alerting them to the potential changes. Those changes are guided by principles that are documented as part of our administrative procedures and, again, include the opportunity for public input prior to the superintendent's formal recommendation. The superintendent's formal recommendation is noted as a first reader, and we're going to highlight the changes that are associated with that first reader. Specifically, there are 4 types of changes that are being proposed. One are what we would consider to be fairly small, minor boundary fixes, and I'll talk about those in just a moment. There's a proposal to consolidate and relocate the Deaf and Hard of Hearing program. There's the assignment of the 6th grade for selected elementary schools to their associated middle school, and there's the reassignment of a portion of Oxon Hill High's attendance area to Potomac High. In the course of reviewing the enrollment and the boundaries for possible improvements, we have called to our attention has come several adjustments that are needed. These are primarily where a particular neighborhood or one street segment is assigned to a different school than their immediate neighbors. We've identified those, and in most cases, a small number of students are impacted. And generally, those changes have been welcomed by those immediately impacted. Those immediately impacted have been notified by postal mail as well as flyers and other information. Again, in all instances, we're talking about less than 10 students that would be impacted by each of the changes. The Deaf and Hard of Hearing program is currently located at Thomas Claggett with associated programs at Bladensburg Elementary and at Thomas Johnson Middle. In an effort to ease the transitions that would occur for these students, as well as to provide a more stable environment for potential growth of their subgroup, it has been proposed that they be relocated to a K-8 school. And Andrew Jackson was identified as a nearby school that has adequate capacity to accommodate the approximately 60 students that are located in that program. There is a pre-kindergarten component of that program numbering about 15 students, which for the coming school year would remain at Thomas Claggett. There is an interest in relocating that, but further study would be needed before identifying a suitable location. The 8th grade students, rising 8th grade students at Thomas Johnson Middle Schools would not be changed as a result of this school. It's only those that are in the elementary portion that would be reassigned for the coming school year. And again, they would articulate through that program up through grade 8. This particular chart attempts to summarize numerically the impacts of that change on the sending school as well as the school which would receive those students. For each school, the state-rated capacity that's labeled on the chart as SRC is identified, along with the approximate September 30th enrollment for the school. Below the September 30th enrollment is a figure labeled as after for enrollment, which would indicate how many are the total students that would result were this change in place on that same date. How many students would have been in that school had this proposal been in effect on September 30th. The percent utilization of the school is presented both before and after, as are the number of open seats. Where there are special programs, we attempt to identify that as well. We also identify a generalized summary of the facility condition. And this particular format will be used to talk about other changes as well. For the 6th grade to middle school, this is a continuation of an initiative that was started several years ago in terms of identifying the most optimal arrangement for our middle schools. Again, under the guidance of our Department of Academics, we've identified where opportunities lie, where 6th grade students currently in elementary schools could be moved into middle schools. Again, with the intent in terms of providing greater diversity in the courses that are available, providing greater stability in regards to their peers, and a greater opportunity to acclimate themselves to the secondary school environment. The specific schools that would be impacted by this year's proposal include Magnolia Elementary, Hydesville Elementary, Riverdale Elementary, Capitol Heights Elementary, and John Bain Elementary. In most instances, these schools were selected based upon, again, not only the academic considerations, but also the fact that some of those schools were experiencing some degree of crowding. In the case of Capitol Heights Elementary, there was a very sparse 6th grade, and the full range of educational options could not be made available to them in that elementary setting. As before, there's a summary chart which provides a numeric indication of the before and after instance should this change be approved. Another change that had been proposed is to address a need to accommodate approximately 450 students that are in excess of the capacity of the new Oxon Hill High School. Again, based upon the available seats in adjacent schools, the public school construction program did not approve the full capacity that was initially requested for the school, and as a result, the new facility can only accommodate approximately 1,200 of the existing 1,600 students. As a result, alternatives were examined in terms of how to moderate the impact on school and to facilitate the transition to a new school. The superintendent's proposal would leave in place, or would allow the rising 11th grade and 12th grade students to finish their careers at Oxon Hill High Schools, and only the rising 9th and rising 10th would be reassigned. As before, here's a summary of the specific changes as they would be impacted by grade. Again, students that would be promoted to the 9th grade or remaining in the 9th grade would be assigned to Potomac High. Those that are being promoted or remaining in the 10th grade would be assigned to Potomac High. The 11th graders, 12th graders, as well as the science tech students would remain in place. The science tech program is not impacted by this proposal. Again, a numeric summary of the before and after circumstance for this proposal is presented. There's also a chart which highlights geographically the location of Oxon Hill High School, the number of pupils, state-rated capacity, and the number of open seats. Again, it was this summary in terms of the availability of adjacent open seats that caused the public school construction program to question the appropriateness in terms of creating a school of 2,300 as was initially requested. These two maps show the before and after circumstance of the proposed boundary change. Again, that area inside the Beltway that's currently assigned to Oxon Hill would be reassigned to Potomac High. Again, this would be phased in over 2 years. As the chairman indicated, the primary focus of this evening's activity is really to go ahead and receive input from the public. And as a result, we are going to terminate the presentation at this point and yield the floor for the registered speakers.
Thank you, Mr. Jones-Brown. At this time, we have one registered speaker for this evening, Ms. Tanya Lawson. We have two now? Okay. I need to get the other three. Okay. Just make sure I get all the names. Our first speaker, however, is Ms. Tanya Lawson, representing Oxon Hill High School PTA. Ms. Lawson, you have 3 minutes to present your comments to the administration and the board. And if you do have them in writing, please leave them for us so that we can also have copies. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Prince George's County PTSA Interim Superintendent, the school board, parents, and community stakeholders. My name is Tanya Lawson. I am the president of Oxon Hill High PTSA with over 12 years of service to our community, a concerned parent, and advocate for our students and education. The Oxon Hill High School PTSA currently has over 420 active members. That includes parents, teachers, alumni, and community supporters. I want to thank you for this opportunity for the PTSA and the community to comment on the recommendations, for the school boundary changes. First, we are appreciative of the outcome of the January 16th meeting that was held at Oxon Hill High School by District 8 School Board member Edward Burrows. Although we were disappointed with the political maneuvering of our school board member to suggest and explore his options of proposing to eliminate the science and technology program from Oxon Hill High School, we are elated to have received Mr. Burrows' promise that the science and technology program would remain at Oxon Hill High School. We commend the parents and the community of Oxon Hill High for their commitment and dedication to advocate for our children and fight to keep our educational program. Second, we believe that the school boundary changes will have both intended and unintended consequences, which have resulted in the following questions by the PTSA and our community. One, transparency. Our open, effective communications. We continue to ask for transparency from the school board level down to the local school agency. Our parents and community want to be involved in the decision-making process. All doors should be open to allow for collaboration and for us to help make progress together. Central office and national research have stated that schools are more successful when parents and the community are involved in the student's education. It should not be the school's policy to shut the door on involved, concerned, and committed parents. What will central office do to improve communications and promote schools building strategic, sustainable partnerships between school and parents? Second, a transition plan. We request to have a formal parent meeting with the school board and central office to discuss the transition plan. We heard that there's 2 phases to this plan, and it's still not clear exactly how many students are leaving this year versus how many students are leaving the second year. Number 3, furniture, equipment, and technology infrastructure. What is the current status of the furniture, equipment, and technology infrastructure for the new school? We request to have a formal meeting with the school stakeholders in order to collaborate on and discuss what the new state-of-the-art science and technology facility would look like. Fourth, the school budget impact. We are very concerned about the process of the school board boundary changes, which would be implemented in FY 2013-2014 academic year, and the FY 2014 operating budget coincide. So we're concerned that these 2 processes coincide. This process is absurd. The reason I call it absurd is because the FY 2014 operating budget submission is due to the county executive on March 1st, 2013. The FY 2014, excuse me, can I just end it? We request to have a meeting with the central office to discuss these questions and concerns. We ask that our comments and concerns be reflected on record, and thank you for listening, and we look forward to having meetings to discuss these concerns.
Ms. Lawson, if you would email your comments, please. Thank you. Also, we have Phyllis Gillens, Magnolia Elementary School. Ms. Gillens, please come forward. Gillens? Accident. Oh, you have to come now. You can't get out of it. Okay. We have Mr. Henry Armwood. Was that an accident, Mr. Armwood?
It was an accident. I thought it was a sign-in sheet.
Okay.
You should be used to me by now.
Well, on that note, I want to acknowledge Mr. Henry Armwood, former board member. Thanks for coming out. Any other registered speakers? Anyone want to sign up tonight that didn't register to speak? Okay. Okay,
Good
state your
evening.
full name for the record and your...
Leslie Jones, and I am a parent of 2 Oxon Hill High School students, a rising 12th grader and a rising 10th grader. To the point, my 12th grader can stay, my 10th grader cannot. Economically, I can't afford it to have 2 high school students in 2 different schools. I don't know what else can be done about it. So I have 2 buses coming to the neighborhood to pick up my kids. The way I look at it, and I could be totally wrong, it seems like they want to get rid of the riffraff. And I could be stating that wrong, to go to Potomac High School, because everything north, and I see that Birchwood was not up there. Birchwood was up there in the beginning. Now I just see Glass Manor and Forest Heights. I moved to that area so that my children could go to Oxon Hill High School. I am an alumni of Oxon Hill High School. And it saddens me that my son, who is a 9th grader, taking 11th grade courses, will not be able to go there next year. He's in ROTC. Oxon Hill has a phenomenal ROTC program. I don't know if Potomac has that. My son wants to go into the Air Force. I know that they will prep him, because they have prepped several of other family members that are doing well in the Air Force right now. That is all that I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. This concludes the public hearing, but just to give you some idea of process. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Please state your name.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Karen McFadden. I, too, have a rising 12th grader at Oxon Hill High. I was at the meeting, I think it was early January, that I went to the one at Oxon Hill Middle. So I'm glad to see that at least my daughter, who's here with me tonight, can stay and graduate from the high school. I do have a 7th grader who goes to Oxon Hill Middle. And it is very sad that he cannot follow in the same footsteps as my daughter and go to Oxon Hill High. He has to now go to Potomac. I, too, do not really know about Potomac. I have not heard great things about Potomac, so I'm very concerned, especially with him being a black male. The fact that, living in Forest Heights, I love my community, but I feel like we are always being penalized for where we live. And just because we live on the inside of the Beltway should not justify why we always have to have issues as far as boundary changes or car insurance rates, just various things. I think that's not fair. I think if there was going to be some boundary or changes because of the school limit, it should have been done with all 9th graders. Why is it just Forest Heights and Glass Manor? So although, I understand more than likely the decisions have been made, I still think it's not fair. And, that a special transfer or whatever has to be done, I'll have to look at the various options. But it's not fair, you know, that Oxon Hill High has a very good program. Science and tech is there. So yes, my daughter's not in science and tech, but we take advantage of all the options at Oxon Hill High because of that. I don't know what Potomac has, but I know they don't have what Oxon Hill High has. So now I have to go fight even harder for my son to have those benefits at Potomac. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McFadden. Any other speakers? Okay, from a timeline perspective, at the January 24th board meeting, the administration first presented the boundary proposal to the board as a first reader. On February the 7th, which is our next system oversight meeting, the board will actually discuss the boundary proceedings that are recommendations that have come before from the superintendent's office. They're on the agenda on the 7th as a second reader, and that's when the board will start to have discussions. We will not vote, take final action on the proposed boundary changes until February 21st, which is an evening board meeting. And what the board typically does relative to what we hear from the public hearing is to then ask the administration, based on the public comments, to give the board a follow-up and response so that when we do have the public discussion, that we're able to understand and know what the administration's response is to the public and their recommendations. So what we heard tonight, Dr. Crawley, was a transition plan that truly defines exactly what's going to happen to students. They want to know specifically about what the school will look like relative to technology, furniture, equipment, things like the logistical things, if this were approved. School budget impact, which is clearly a good question considering we have student-based budgeting. So the board would be asking that anyway from a budget perspective. And then also, sometimes we also get, depending on the administration's recommendation, those anomalies, if you will. So how many siblings do we have where those kind of situations happen, so that you could give the board how many people are impacted from those kinds of things. At least it would help us to be informed in making decisions. The other thing that I wanted to make sure, school budget, meeting with central office, sibling impact. Yeah. Okay, want to add to this? Okay. Or you can give it to me. Are you giving it to the administration? Go ahead.
I also heard the families talking about the fact that they really weren't familiar with what Potomac had to offer. Mm-hmm. And so if there could be a scheduled meeting for the Oxon Hill families to meet the principal and to know more about what services or what programming is at Potomac. Okay.
Absolutely, and one of the things that we have been talking about as part of the transition plan, there would be opportunities for our parents and students to receive information as well as participate in on-site visits at the school. So I would be happy to reflect that in my comments at the next board meeting. Yes.
Ms. Fellows?
Thank you for coming out and sharing your thoughts and opinions about the boundary proposal. One of the questions, or one of the things I've heard was the concern regarding the perceived perception about inside the Beltway, outside the Beltway, those kind of concerns that the parents that I'm hearing in regards to any kind of disparities that they may be feeling, if there's something that can be addressed in reference to some of those concerns and those thoughts that have been raised.
Ms. Epps?
Also, I'm sensitive to the concern about the programming at Potomac. Could we also include in the information like college, what am I trying to say? Outcome information. So the, kind of scholarship, where students end up going to college, that kind of information, because I think that, maybe that would help parents understand what kind of outcomes will come for the students that attend Potomac as well.
We'll include in that information, I think you're referencing any post-secondary information that would be helpful to parents related to the school.
Okay, that concludes the public hearing, and Dr. Crowley, if you could make sure that for the second reader that the board has this information so that we can be informed in our decision making. All right, thank you for coming out. We are adjourned from the public hearing.